Welcome back to Stay on Topic. This is episode 6.5. Just a reminder, hit us up on our email address at stayontopic111@gmail. Follow me at Giltastrophe on Twitter, or follow James Post
at PostJM9.
And there's Bob who will tweet.
Follow my MySpace page.
So with us today, as always, stalwart Bob Ricotta.
Thanks for having me, Chris. I have to warn our listeners today, I am kind of battling a cold, so I may be a little more nasally than normal. I also have taken some drugs that seem to be interacting interestingly with the drugs I usually take. So did we hire a sound man who's also a lemur?
No.
Okay, great. Okay, good. This is going to be good.
Nor the intern.
We have an intern?
No, not yet.
Oh.
Also with us, the man, eventually, but at a later date so we can get started early, James Post will be podcasting in some form for the badly needed Stay on Topic.
What?
That was a riff on Donald Trump's tweet this morning.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
See, it was so poorly constructed that even the riff on it lost me.
Yeah.
But no, I'm happy to be here, and I have a warning for our listeners as well. Given that we are partially government funded, there is the chance that this show could just stop at any point when funding runs out. So you've got that to look forward to.
And I'm Chris Gill. So this week, another weird week. The potential for a writer strike during the golden age of television is looming. Ted Nugent, Chris Rock, Sarah Palin all step foot in the Oval Office on the same day. Sadly, Erin Moran, who played Joni Cunningham from Happy Days, she died at age 56.
And
I mean, she was a first crush for a lot of guys our generation.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be surprised if this is all part of the Russian story. I had Joni, I had her pegged as a double agent from a long time ago. So ever since Joni Loves Chachi, really.
Yeah.
Well, and
I was gonna say that would have been my first credit for her. Joni Loves Chachi.
Really?
It's Happy Days is really just a prequel.
Wow.
Huh.
Okay.
Okay. And also, our president, Donald Trump, is throwing himself a rally to mark his first 100 days in office. And that's coming up this weekend. It's the same day as the Correspondents' Dinner, which he won't attend. And,
Who's hosting that?
It's in Pennsylvania.
Uh-huh.
I don't know who's hosting it. I'm just assuming he's throwing it for himself.
No. Who's the host of the Correspondents' Dinner?
Oh.
It's probably not Stephen Colbert this year.
No, I forgot.
I don't know. Once it started coming out that...
Is it Larry the Cable Guy? Please say it's Larry the Cable Guy.
Once it started coming out that the president wasn't going to be attending, I sort of stopped paying attention to any of that. So
yeah. And this weekend, psychiatry experts at a Yale conference all concluded that Donald Trump has a, quote, dangerous mental illness, unquote, and defined him as paranoid and delusional. That's the first time I've seen an expert actually address that. But we also have big goings on with a budget, or maybe not a budget.
Well, we don't have a budget right now. We're operating under a continuing resolution. That continuing resolution runs out at midnight, April 28th. And so, Trump and the Republicans have to get a spending bill through somehow. And it's not going to be easy because that bill is subject to filibuster in the Senate if Democrats don't like it. And beyond that, they may not even get that far because a lot of insiders are saying the Freedom Caucus not going to vote for anything that comes through as far as a spending bill, which means they may need Democratic votes in the House to pass an interim spending bill, which is what this is going to have to be.
And the whole mess with funding the wall.
Exactly. And Trump is still insisting that he needs $1 billion in this spending bill to start. He says start construction. I'm assuming $1 billion on a project this size is probably only going to cover like surveying and engineering.
I was going to say, yeah.
And Obamacare is wrapped into this whole thing too, because if if funding is cut for, let me get this right. There was a program that helps low-income people pay for health care
Yeah.
that Trump is threatening to cut, or he wants to trade votes, basically.
Yeah.
He's saying $1 for the wall for $1 for Obamacare spending.
Yes.
Do you think he can pick off enough Democrats to get this?
I don't see how.
No. The reality is, as much as I think Democrats do broadly support Obamacare and what it's doing, I think as long as it falling apart is clearly President Trump's fault, they're happy to see that happen.
Okay. Now, let's make it clear. This April 28th deadline is a very soft deadline. It can be moved.
Yes.
If it looks like they're a week or so from making a deal, they can push it back a week.
Yeah. I mean, they're a week from it now. No discussion yet of what kind of financial legerdemain they would undertake in order to get that deadline pushed back right now.
No, but we've seen things go to the 11th hour before, and then they'll buy themselves another week.
Yeah, and that's, probably the most likely outcome at this point is a 2-week extender at current funding levels.
Sure.
But it's always fun to talk about the worst case scenario.
Oh, absolutely.
So, as far as the intersection of the spending bill and Trump's demands for border wall funding, we had, we're recording this on Sunday, so we got lots of fodder from the Sunday shows this morning to work with. Attorney General Jeff Sessions was on ABC's This Week this morning, said, quote, "I can't imagine the Democrats would shut down the government over an objection to building a down payment on a wall that can end the lawlessness."
End it. This wall will end crime as we know it.
Apparently.
Wow.
But that's a big bet that the Democrats won't shut down the government over that. Because the other side of that, and this was earlier this week, we had a quote from Nancy Pelosi on a conference call with her members saying, quote, "We have all the leverage and they have all the exposure." She is betting that because they're going to need Democratic votes on this, most likely, and because the Republicans control the House, Senate, and the White House, that they can pull pretty much whatever they want, and it's going to be the GOP that gets blamed for a shutdown.
Do you buy that?
I think, to joke you public, that's probably how it's going to play. Trump is the face of this government now for a lot of people. And if it's not working, it's Trump that's going to get blamed.
I still don't see how they're going to get funding for a wall nobody wants, except Trump and his acolytes.
Yeah. And that's it.
When all those Republican congressmen and senators campaigned on balancing the budget and reducing the deficit.
Yeah.
To add $1 billion to build a wall, completely unnecessary.
Well, $1 billion, which is, by conservative estimates, 1/30 of the actual cost of the wall.
Good Lord.
With Trump surrogates still on TV saying that there's, we're going to have to pay for this up front, but there's some trade manipulation or something we can do to make it so that the money eventually comes out of Mexicans' pockets eventually.
Do you think anybody believes that? I mean, even the most faithful of Trump followers, do you think anybody believes that Mexico is going to pay for this at this point?
I can't fathom any rational human being believes that.
No.
Then why do they keep saying it?
Because it sounds good.
But not if nobody believes. I mean, you sound foolish if nobody's buying what you're saying and you keep saying it. Don't you end up looking like a dope?
Well, to be fair, Trump really hasn't been saying it himself since the inauguration. He pretty much acknowledged. He started softening up the ground right after inauguration, saying that we were probably going to have to pay for the wall up front and maybe recoup the money somewhere else. He didn't quite give up on the idea of getting money out of the Mexicans, but he was softening that line, January 21st.
So by the time this is all said and done, it's going to be some barbed wire just stretched across.
I have a question about this wall. Has anyone done a schematic or like what's this wall going to look like and where's it going to be?
Well, that's what this $1 billion would pay for.
Yeah.
Because isn't the Rio Grande a big part of our border?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is it going to be a floating wall?
That'd be kind of neat, huh?
Well, it would.
Then you could swim under it.
It would presumably have to be on the U.S. side of the Rio Grande, which there are already people in South Texas who, when they started building sections of wall there, lost access to their property because they owned property that was between where they built the wall and the Rio Grande.
Now, if you are a true blue Trump supporter and you believe not in Trump the man, but in whatever convoluted principles he stands for, wouldn't opposition to eminent domain be one of your main tenets?
Yeah.
That phrase has never come up in this conversation, which I find really strange.
I mean, they're going to spend.
It's going to be
millions
a massive part of this project.
buying people's property that they don't want to sell.
Exactly.
Yeah. Do Democrats?
Well, also, this podcast originates from Corning, New York. We are nowhere near the southern border. I'm sure this is a big topic down there, but it hasn't.
It hasn't been any part of this discussion on the national stage.
I haven't seen it on Slate, Vox. All the
No, but I'll bet in papers
all
in
the
Texas,
liberal media you consume.
Exactly.
like down in El Paso. I'm pretty sure some stories have been done on this.
Oh, I'm sure.
Has Salon brought it up, Bob?
I actually found Salon too liberal for my taste.
Wow.
I unfriended Salon.
Okay.
But
that's a point in your favor.
Thank you. But the only thing I can think of is that Democrats seem to feel like they're winning this fight without eminent domain. So maybe that's the bullet they're keeping in their holster for now.
Again, we return to a recurring topic on this podcast. I'm not convinced the Democrats are that smart.
They always leave their holster hanging on the bathroom door.
And I tend to believe me, Bob Ricotta, a mediocre mind at best. I cannot outthink Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats in Washington.
Well,
that's not possible. If I can outthink our government, we are so screwed.
Well, and I'm sure there are lots of really smart minds in the Democratic Party, even at the higher levels. But the Democrats seem to work somehow unlike any other group in that they don't get smarter in groups. They don't somehow join their collective intelligence together and come up with better ideas. They seem to be limited by the least smart person in the group when they act in groups.
Yeah, well, I mean, evidence does bear that out. I still have faith that Democrats know what they're doing, and that if numbers start to turn against them vis-a-vis the wall, that the whole eminent domain thing will come up.
Can we print that on your tombstone? Bob Ricotta, 1963 to 2017, quote, I still have faith that Democrats know what they're doing.
Yeah, sure. I didn't have a snappy epitaph.
Now, a cynical view on this would, back to Bob's point of him being smarter or more clever than the people in power. A cynical viewpoint would be that the donors who fund these races are going to fund the most easily manipulative people. And that's why they keep getting reelected. And that's why you have some dunderheads in key positions, because the donors know that, well, this person is going to be my lackey in Congress. I'm not going to prop up this other person who's probably smarter. That's my cynical view on
Okay.
it.
Or we could go with the whole gerrymandering argument that there are certain seats that are so safe that you don't have to be, a Mensa candidate to win there. You just have to be the right party.
Yeah. And I'm sure that's true. There are actually still a few more interesting points on this general topic that I did want to throw into the pool and see what bites. So Trump is still using the language. Trump and his surrogates are still using the language that he's insistent that funding for the border wall be included in a spending bill. So Reince Priebus is on Meet the Press this morning, was of course asked if he would veto a spending bill that didn't include border wall funding. He dodged that question. His only answer was, quote, "I'm pretty confident we're going to get something that's satisfactory to the president." So unclear if that's a factor that's in play too.
Yeah.
Well,
It's just nice to see they let Rance out of his room.
as I understand it, the wall isn't going to be a line item in the budget, but if it's part of border security in general.
Yeah, and that's probably where the deal's going to be worked out.
Right.
There'll be funding that will be called border security. Everybody saves face, and it ends up getting spent on the wall anyway.
Yeah.
But just as a last point, an interesting coincidence, not really something that's genuinely interesting, but it's the way things turned out. If a shutdown occurs, and if this hard deadline of April 28th holds, the shutdown would occur April 29th, which is in fact Donald Trump's 100th day in office.
Wow, that's kismet, huh?
It is. And, you can't plan these things, because I'm sure that when, they put together this CR that they weren't thinking in those terms. There's no way. As this has become sort of part of the discussion that, shutdown could happen on Trump's 100th day, there was a AP interview with Trump that was just published this morning, with Trump suddenly saying that the 100-day mark is, quote, not very meaningful.
But he's going to throw himself a rally.
Exactly. It's a little off from from what he was saying earlier, as far as the importance of getting all these things done.
Quote, paranoid and delusional, unquote.
And I don't have access to all of his stump speeches, but I'm sure he made promises of things that would be done within the first 100 days.
Well, he made promises of things that would be done the very first day.
Yeah,
you're right.
That were logistically impossible to do the first day. Like
So
repealing Obamacare.
I think that most people would say that 100-day mark is not significant. It's artificial.
He made it significant.
But the politicians keep making it significant by setting that as a marker. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. They should just stop doing that.
Yeah.
So in the meantime, fading into the background is that over the last week, there was a lot of talk about the return of a somehow tweaked Republican repeal and replace bill for Obamacare.
That he wants passed by the first 100 days.
Yes, that was mentioned at the time. A few details about shifting some decisions about coverage requirements and stuff to the states. There were some negotiations between moderates in the GOP and the Freedom Caucus, but the general consensus was that this still wasn't going to get the votes to pass. That's sort of been pushed off the table. Speaker Paul Ryan had a conference call with members on yesterday, where he assured them that they still consider healthcare a priority. They're still going to deal with it, but right now they have to deal with spending. So that's going to be on the back burner.
And speaking of Congress,
Yes.
some doings down in Georgia.
Yes, the devil went down to Georgia. And the devil's name is Jon Ossoff. Well, not really. He's not the devil. He is I believe, a 30-year-old Democrat who ran for the Georgia 6th.
You just insist he's not the devil because you're a Democrat.
Yes, that's very true. He could be the devil. He was running for the seat vacated by Tom Price when Tom Price was named HHS secretary. And this was what is called a jungle primary, which means you throw all the candidates into one race. And
I was hoping you were going to say one room. Sorry.
that would have been a lot cooler.
With knives.
Yes. So everyone runs on this in one election. If nobody breaks the 50% threshold, then the top two vote getters have a runoff. In this case, the runoff will be June 20th. Jon Ossoff The Democrat came so close.
Way close.
48.1%.
And that was with Democrats propping him up. The DCCC like actually gave him money.
Yeah, they actually tried this time.
He got $8 million in funding for this House race.
Or 7.7 more than our good friend in Kansas.
And Thompson.
Second place went to Republican Karen Handel at 19.8. And third place, Bob Gregg, I believe. I can't read my own handwriting, but he only got 10.8. He's not a factor. So I find this interesting because this is a Rorschach for your psyche, how you look at national politics. If you are a optimistic Democrat, you can say nobody, this was unheard of in the Georgia 6th. This is a district that went for Mitt Romney by like 23%. Price won this district by over 20%.
Yeah.
This is huge. If you are a Democratic pessimist, you will say, yeah, but he didn't break 50%. So if you clump together all of the Republican candidates into one vote,
exactly,
yeah,
then he still loses.
That vote was split so much that it's almost impossible at this point to determine what percentage of those people are actually going to turn out and vote for the Republican who will actually be the standard bearer.
And I didn't find any...
I wouldn't want to be doing the polling on this.
This is the closest America gets to European style elections.
Yeah.
And it's much more interesting.
It is.
For the sports fan mind.
Sure. It's like the semis and then the finals.
Oh, yeah. It's great.
But there is reason for optimism. 65% of voters in the Georgia 6th are college educated. That is a strong constituency for Democrats. This district only went to Donald Trump by like 2 points.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So while they love them some Republicans, they do not like Donald Trump.
Huh. Geographically, where's 6th?
I think it contains DeKalb. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. I think it contains some of Georgia's bigger cities, I think.
Okay.
Raul, can you check that for us? Raul or Lemur?
The Lemur intern.
I think the Lemur went to the restroom.
So yeah, there are signs that Democrats could be optimistic. This would have been a big get. This was the highest share of college-educated voters in a district that was not held by Democrats. So this is one they had their eye on. Unfortunately, when you look at how the votes broke, the Republican votes were spread among, I think, 10 or 11 candidates, where Ossoff got almost 100% of the Democratic votes. So he's going to have to peel off some of those, the people who voted Republican, or just hope they stay home.
Yeah.
The one thing that I am, being a Democrat, being a partisan, the one thing I am optimistic about is that Trump keeps doing dumb things. Where voters could become complacent. He keeps doing things to get people worked up. Voter turnout, or not voter turnout, voter engagement, I think is still higher than it would be under a President Romney, just because he keeps being Donald Trump. He keeps being loud. He keeps being, what we had yesterday, the Earth Day demonstrations.
Yeah. I
mean, that's pretty significant. We didn't have those during the last 8 years. So, and even in our own district, it is 4 months since the election, and we've still got demonstrations outside of Tom Reed's office every Tuesday.
Yeah.
So I think Democrats are still engaged. Will they stay engaged through June 20th? That's the big question.
And Georgia's 6th district is just north of Atlanta, so you're looking at suburbs.
Yep.
Just a little east of Marietta and south of Dawsonville.
The significance of that?
Awesome Bill from Dawsonville. Bill Elliott.
Sorry,
Nothing?
man.
Oh, my God.
Sorry.
Democrats don't watch NASCAR.
I just thought it was a big deal to everybody.
So what say you guys? Are you optimistic about this seat? Not optimistic or pessimistic. Which way do you think this could break? And is this significant, especially in light of the Kansas 4th results? Or,
Yeah, coupled with the Kansas 4th, it's amazing to me how quickly things seem to have shifted away from that nationalist kind of attitude that happened in the run-up to the election. It seems that people have gotten their taste of it, and they're like, oh, no, this is a shitty way to go. we really need to try something else. That has surprised me more than anything is the speed at which people seem to be changing their minds, or at least getting engaged in the political system to try to make that change. I mean, you're talking 4 months since the inauguration, and people are already like, oh my God, when's the next election? We have to change this.
Yeah, so like the world's quickest buyer remorse.
Like, these things usually take a generation to change, or at least a couple election cycles. And this one, you can feel a change in attitude by some of the voters and the non-voters. Lazy bastards.
As far as Georgia 6, I think if I'm a Democratic strategist, my concern is this was always going to be a difficult district for Democrats. And if they put all that money into it and still don't win, which is certainly possible given the voter breakdown, that the DCCC takes the wrong message away. That they decide that we're not going to put this kind of money into these races because it didn't get us anything.
Despite how it's narrowed up and how quickly, I would be dumping all the money into these early races, especially.
But you still have finite money.
Yeah,
And there's gonna be
No.
there's always gonna be people arguing that we should be spending money where we can win.
Yeah, but momentum builds on itself. If they get a 2-point loss in the Georgia 6th, that can be spun as a win. You can say, look how close we are in this district that hasn't gone Democrat in years. Just think what we can do in some of these more vulnerable districts if you just give us $20 or $200 or $2,000. You just have to be able to spin it.
They just have to put their...
And I can see spinning it that way to donors. I don't know how many words into that last sentence you said, Bob, the average voter falls asleep.
I don't think the average voter knows what's going on in the Georgia 6th
Yeah.
right now.
People in the Georgia 6 may not understand what's happening.
Exactly.
Yes.
No, this is all for the donor class. This is for the faithful, the true believers, the people that are rallying on Science Day.
Yeah.
I've said it's a broken record. Democrats have a great message, and they're just not getting it out to a large enough audience. They keep hitting the same blue rocks over and over and over again. Spread that message out. I mean, you may turn some people, or at least, inform people of what your message really is, instead of letting them believe what pundits and other politicians tell them your message is, which kind of seems to be the way things have gone for way too long.
I
Spend
guess
the money.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Spend the money. Spend the money now, because even a close loss can beget more money down the line.
Right.
I agree. And if they could pick off this seat, I mean, they only need 20 some seats to flip the House.
Yeah.
This would be a great get. Now, and it's funny because in all this talk about the Georgia 6th, we haven't talked about the candidates. I don't know if Ossoff is pro-life, pro-choice, pro-death penalty. I don't know a thing about him.
He's a Georgia Democrat. Who knows? I haven't done the reading on him.
I haven't either.
He knows what strings to pluck.
Yeah.
Thompson
And
did too.
They are banjo strings.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
It is the
no, fiddle.
Yeah.
The devil did go down to Georgia.
Word up. But yeah, Thompson,
God, we're
he
elitist.
knew what strings to pluck in Kansas, because some of the rare materials he was able to put out, showed him out hunting and in his camo and everything. He knew his people.
Yeah.
And the same way Bernie Sanders is so hesitant on going full bore on gun control. He knows his people.
Yeah.
I mean, gun culture in Vermont is a pretty big deal. Bernie understands that, so that's the way he was raised. But the Democrats ultimately just get your damn message out there. Spend the damn money. You got it. There's going to be more of it because unions and banks love you. Spend it.
That's
Now,
here's one of, and I'm going way off topic now. This is something that has bothered me for a long time. The Democrats need to come up with some kind of language that changes the abortion conversation.
explain.
Yeah, he went.
There's still, well, you talked about, whether Ossoff would have to be pro-life to be a successful Georgia Democrat. More than 60% of the country is pro-choice. And yet Democrats still fight this fight like they're in the minority.
Yeah.
And I think it's a language problem. I think they're still so willing to present themselves. They're still so willing to, they came up with the language of pro-choice rather than pro-abortion. That's the most they've evolved on this issue. And that was 30 years ago. Some way to convey themselves as the mainstream and people who are anti-abortion as out of the mainstream. I think that would help them a lot to stop from having to have that conversation every 2 years.
Yeah. Okay. Now I see where you're going with this. It took me a while, but I got there. Yeah. Why are they?
I convey my ideas for a living.
They're so hesitant to push their agendas, even if it's popular.
Yeah.
It happens with gun control all the time.
All right. And I've got arguments for both of these.
Go.
Okay. So on gun control, it's a matter of passion. A lot of people say they are in favor of sensible gun control legislation, but it's fifth or sixth on their list of things to do. While people who are anti-gun control, it's number one.
Oh, yeah.
Number 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
So they outpassion the other side. With abortion, that the majority of Americans may poll as pro-choice, but then you start putting conditions on it and you start losing people. Like, okay, are you pro-choice in the third trimester?
Right.
Are you, and then all of a sudden it's like 51%. And that's another one where the pro-life people are really, really pro-life. Like there are a lot of single issue voters in the pro-life camp.
Well, but messaging and platform should be about the long term. They shouldn't be about the next election. It should be about
creating a new culture.
Yes. If again, putting myself in the position of a Democratic strategist, my thought on messaging on abortion should be 4 presidential elections from now, the people who today are calling themselves pro-life will be considered a fringe, and they will think of themselves that way. And eventually it just won't be part of the conversation anymore. That's not something you do between now and the midterms.
Right.
It's something you have to do by changing the national conversation, by changing the terms that the general population uses when referring to these issues. And Democrats aren't good at thinking in those long-term, thinking about, waging a culture war effectively.
I don't think they have the spine for it. Like,
if there's going to be a culture war, have a battle plan. And it's going to take place over generations.
Holsters on the bedroom door.
Yeah.
But yeah, and a lot of trying to change that culture is changing the messaging through the media. And the media is kind of underwent a major change this week and really in the last year. Bill O'Reilly, who has been the top-rated news host for 15, 20 years.
Somewhere in between there.
Yeah.
At least 15.
He was let go by Fox News for scores of sexual harassment claims, 5 of which got paid out in settlements of $13 million total by Fox News. And this was less than a year after his boss, Roger Ailes, was let go for sexual harassment by Fox News.
Well,
that's two pillars of the foundation of the only conservative news outlet on television, on mainstream television anyway.
Yeah. I would almost like to go back and challenge you on your initial statement, though.
That he was let go by Fox News?
That he was let go by Fox News for sexual harassment allegations and not for losing advertisers.
Oh, well, you had to let me get there. It's warming up.
Okay.
But yeah, that his show brought in 2016 brought in $325 million in 1 year. His annual salary was only 20. So they had more than 30 advertisers pull their ads after all these allegations came out, and the settlements that whole thing was revealed. So Fox took a hit of more than $250,000. And how do you replace that? You don't. But, you know, the arch nemesis of Keith Olbermann is going to be back this week with his own podcast or his website.
Oh,
yeah.
So we have more competition. Great.
Yeah, I'm sure.
You're on blast, O'Reilly.
And I'm sure he considered us before he even decided to get into this realm.
And yeah, it took him a whole of 2 days to sweat that
Do
one.
I really want to get into this when Stay on Topic is out there? I think there's still an audience for me.
It was the episode we recorded with the laptop mic that really made him decide.
He was shaking in his boots after that.
Yeah.
I don't know if that probably convinced. He heard that episode. He's
Really?
like, there's the chink.
You see he's racist?
Yes.
Thank God I'm off the hook.
Someone on the...
You're the one who used the term. So now all it does is
Chink is an armor. But yeah, this, to me, I think this is pretty significant because people who lean right have lost one of their great voices. And one thing you got to give it to Bill. Yeah, he carried plenty of water for the right and that all their donors, but he called bullshit on things when they needed to be called. I don't know that there are many people there left that will do that. Like maybe Shep Smith is the last.
Shepard's got a little bit of integrity.
But a shard.
That's part of what's a little frustrating to me about this story is that obviously, I'm not going to say obviously, I wasn't there. I don't know what happened, but based on the number and severity of allegations against him, he was in private a piece of shit.
Yeah. I mean, he didn't approach Cosby level, but still pretty bad.
At the same time, I felt like he was somebody who was capable of, like I talked a couple of episodes about Michael Steele, a couple of episodes ago about Michael Steele, somebody who's dedicated to conservative Republican position, but was capable of seeing when his own party was screwing up.
Yeah.
Was capable of, as you say, calling bullshit when, Trump would say certain things and that voice is going to be missing. And his voice was, the biggest one that was doing that.
Yeah. And
as far as a voice that conservatives are going to hear,
it carried a lot of weight. And he's never going to approach the audience doing a podcast the way he did with Fox News. He just won't.
Well,
because a lot of his demographic don't know what the hell a podcast is.
Yeah.
I think with Fox News in general, demographics is destiny. They skew so heavily older.
Yeah.
That they're just not replacing their viewers that die every day. So eventually.
But TV news in general skews old.
Yes.
Yeah,
but Fox News especially.
Yeah.
They need,
just look at the advertisements and you'll see how old it actually skews.
Yeah.
So
this coming from somebody who works in print media, where I think the audience actually skews dead.
All right.
But yeah.
Comfortable silence.
Well, it's
Now I'm in trouble.
A moment of silence for James and his profession.
It used to be our profession.
That's why we ain't there anymore. So yeah, I'm really curious to see what happens to Fox News and the messaging that comes out of Fox News. How many O'Reilly loyalists are going to be like, if there's no Bill O'Reilly, there is really no reason for me to watch this anymore.
It could be quite a few.
Yeah, I think it could be significant. But losing two major parts of the foundation since 96.
Yeah, I mean I hate to make this comparison because he's not a newsman, but he was Fox News's Walter Cronkite.
No doubt about it. And now you're left with Hannity?
Yeah, and he just doesn't have the respect.
He doesn't have the gravitas. He doesn't do anything to get the respect.
Yeah.
And let's not forget, it wasn't so long ago that they lost Glenn Beck.
Yeah, that's right.
Glenn Beck went and started his own thing.
Yep.
And that's worked out really well. What was it again?
The Blaze? Or Blaze Up? Or The Blazer? It's all about sports codes.
And now the only thing we know about is that that's the thing that, what's her name? Tommy Lahren got fired from.
And
yes.
If Fox wanted to skew younger, wouldn't that be a great get? She's unemployed right now.
Yeah.
Why not? I mean, they lost Megyn Kelly. And didn't Greta leave Fox News also?
I don't watch enough Fox News to really know.
Yeah.
I know Geraldo's still there.
I know it. There's been a lot of churn. It's hard for me to even keep track at this point.
Yeah, so it just seems like they're, and again,
Ducey's still there. I know that.
Ducey.
Steve Ducey.
Never heard. Alan Combs still there? Whatever happened to that guy?
I don't know if Alan Combs is still alive.
He is not.
Oh, that's right. He just
You both looked at me with shock.
he died.
Yeah, he died
a month ago.
Yeah,
That's right.
Yep.
So aren't you guys the assholes?
We are.
Yep. Okay.
All I know is
fully admit
Yep.
my girl Rachel is still killing it in the ratings since Trump got elected.
Yeah.
She might pick up more viewers. Who knows? I mean, people who watch those nightly news shows aren't there to be informed. They're there to get a rise out of something.
Yeah.
And
it's nice to know that MSNBC still has their pretty much exact except opposite side of the aisle equivalent of Bill O'Reilly.
Absolutely. I'm okay with, I mean, MSNBC does not present itself as a news source. They are clearly op-ed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So what everyone do fun this week?
I had a cold, so I took a lot of drugs and went to bed early.
I was rather tickled by the news that Fernando Alonso, two-time Formula One world driving champion, is going to enter the Indianapolis 500. He's going to forego Monaco to race in the Indy 500. That's pretty big. That's the first time an active F1 driver has raced the Indy 500 since the 60s when it was part of the World Driving Championship. Like, they would give you points towards the World Driving Championship if you race in the 500. So that's a big deal for just gearheads.
And that's actually really interesting to, our one listener who will care about that, which is you listening to the YouTube to make sure it worked.
Lord Buffington.
That's true.
And Lord Buffington will get a rise out of the Dawsonville reference.
That's true.
That's
Huge
right.
Bill
Ladies and
Elliott
gentlemen,
fan.
we know our listeners by name.
So yeah, that's why I was tickled by. James, you finally saw Rogue One.
I did. And I generally enjoyed the film. Walked out of it. I saw it sitting in my living room, but
In my underpants.
no. But came away with a few issues. And I suppose we're going to be getting into spoiler territory.
I think we're safe.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was the last person who hadn't seen it.
I think so.
Who's going to see it or care?
It's basically a prequel for episode 4.
Yeah.
So what are you spoiling?
Well, and in a way, you're getting exactly to one of my main points, which is the creation of a bunch of characters who are somehow incredibly important before A New Hope and are all dead before that movie begins.
Yes.
Which was necessary to make this movie work, but makes it feel almost dramatically empty.
How so? Because there are no plaques in episode 4 to Jyn Erso or something? Or they don't name a ship the Jyn Erso or something?
Well,
is it the
it
lack
seems
of acknowledgement that's bothering you?
it
Or
seems like they could have come up with some character that we remember from episode 4 that could have bridged that gap.
They had several.
Moff Tarkin.
They had Mon Mothma. They had Princess Leia, Darth Vader, 3PO and R2D2 were there.
They were. But what I'm saying, as far as the crew that actually undertakes the mission,
Right.
who
are specifically told not to.
Yes. If somehow, Biggs Darklighter had decided to go along with them and had been the sole survivor.
Well, they did. All those X-Wing pilots did join the assault.
Yeah, I noticed some reused footage there.
Yeah.
But no, I felt like they were working so hard to leave themselves a clean slate that it was like by the time people started dying, I was like, okay, everyone who's a main on-screen character in this movie who takes an active part in the plot is going to be dead by the end.
Except the X-Wing pilots.
Yeah.
There's more crossover. The big...
I have nerdier problems with this movie that no one cares about.
Like all the reshoots and how sometimes it felt a little disjointed. They did a great job with all those reshoots to blend them in with the original footage.
No, I'm talking about lore problems. I'm talking about using X-Wings to solve B-Wing problems.
Yeah. I thought that the first time I saw it, I'm like, why aren't you bombing the shit out of that thing?
Yes.
Why you keep using
it's like they finally
attack fighters?
They finally brought in some Y-Wings, and it's like, that's great. They can use their ion cannons to drain shields, but you still need the B-Wings to actually damage the superstructure.
Yeah, that bothered me upon first viewing. I'm like, why aren't you using the B-Wings?
Yeah.
Wow, it just got really dirty in here.
Nobody cares about the B-Wings. Those guys work just as hard as the X-Wing pilots.
The X-Wing pilots should have been making a path for the B-Wings.
Yes, they're fighter interceptors. They're not supposed to be trying to take out a Star Destroyer by themselves.
No. So, yeah, I'm with you on
escorts.
that. And a lot of these movies make that mistake. They build the lore of what each... what are they called? Fighter or bomber does and all this, and they never use them properly. They always every Star Wars movie misuses them.
I was also somewhat troubled by the existence in this film of a couple of TIE configurations that don't show up in A New Hope, even though it only takes place 30 minutes later.
Yeah. and the varying stormtrooper armors. Like, you'd think you would have seen the kind of camo armor on Endor. Yeah.
Wow.
Not my only problem though. Another problem more in the writing dramatic realm is the swiftness of Jyn Erso's turnaround from, oh my God, you're going to kill my father, you guys are bastards, to the moral center of the rebellion.
I have to believe that was part of the tonal changes that the director Gareth Edwards was told to make by Kathleen Kennedy.
Yeah, and I think a lot of things got...
Everybody walked out of that. Like, casual fans were like, wow, that was a really dark Star Wars film. I'm like, the first version was bleak as hell. Like, Kennedy said, we got to do something because this is way too depressing.
And I wish it was, because what I wanted to see as I'm sitting through this movie, and, I keep having these thoughts because I'm this kind of moviegoer. It's like, when the Rebel Alliance comes for Jyn and you start to realize what they want, and it's like, what a parallel. They're after her for the same reason that the Empire was.
Right.
And I thought that they were setting up Saul Guerrera's group as sort of a counterpoint to the Rebel Alliance. These are the more extreme guys, but that never really played out.
It was mentioned.
Yeah.
Like, these guys are a little too extreme for us, so we kind of let them do their own thing. But they'll hurt the Empire, but they don't have to be associated with with the rebellion, and therefore we don't carry any of that guilt for their jungle warfare type or guerrilla warfare type tactics.
And again, maybe this is the product of reshoots and trying to change the tone of the film, that I got to the scene in the big meeting room that's, so familiar from A New Hope with, Jyn trying to rouse everyone to go steal the Death Star plans. And in my head, I'm still thinking, all these people are assholes. I don't like the rebels.
They kind of, they almost reminded me of congressional Democrats.
And we come full circle.
Yeah.
We've come back to that.
Yeah. And that's kind of what they reminded me of when they were all debating of whether or not to, what to do, whether to leave the rebellion altogether because things were getting a little hairy.
Yeah. And at the same time, we get the stuff from, I'm losing his name, but the guy who was going to snipe the father.
Yeah. Yep. Can't remember his name.
Well, that's a good sign for any film.
Yeah.
Because I just saw it, 5-6 days ago.
And I've seen it 4 times.
When that guy comes out with the people who are volunteering to go along and they start talking about, we've done some bad things, we've been assassins, we've been saboteurs. I honestly think going darker with that stuff would have made the turnaround to something closer to the rebels as we know them more believable in a way.
Well, we went opening night, Ricotta and Wenzel and our buddy Coxie. And, up to the point where they unleashed the Death Star on the forget the name of the planet or moon they were on. And, everybody dies. It's like, well, that was a neat little movie. And then that last 10-minute sequence was so exhilarating. That's all I took away from it upon my initial showing. I was like, holy shit, that was the best 10 minutes in Star Wars history. It was fantastic.
I enjoyed the ending. I was a little bothered by
Carrie Fisher's rendered
yes.
video game face.
I was bothered by the CG there as I was with Tarkin. Tarkin looked like he was straight out of the Clone Wars TV series.
And I didn't pick up, I saw it twice in the theaters with 2 different groups of friends. And neither time, because theater screens just aren't very crisp, Tarkin looked okay because he was around dark backgrounds and there was a lot of shadows where his scenes were. So Tarkin looked okay. But the Princess Leia reveal at the end with all the light, it just looks so fake.
Yeah.
And then when I watched it on Blu-ray, Tarkin looked that fake. And I was like, oh my God, they both looked that video game fake.
Yeah, they were PS2 cutscenes.
Yeah.
But I think Leia bothered me more because coming to it from the other side of Carrie Fisher's death, it was like, that is not the tribute that I want to see.
No, and she died the New Year's Day, right?
Yeah.
Or sometime shortly thereafter. But yeah, we had seen it well before you even knew that Carrie Fisher was really ill.
Yeah.
So it wasn't quite as haunting.
Another continuity thing in that ending sequence that bothered me a little bit is the attempt to mirror the assault on the
transport ship.
Yeah, on the transport ship, and Vader coming through the door as he does at the beginning of A New Hope, except it's clearly before that.
Yes.
They're trying to paint a scene that reminds you of that, and it's like, then you have to imagine a few minutes later Vader getting back with the stormtroopers, and it's like, hey guys, how about when we take this consular ship, we do just what we just did? Because that was awesome.
As far as continuity, I didn't care because that is the most badass Vader is ever going to look on film.
But his voice was so bad.
James Earl Jones is old.
I know.
And you
and
can
I
only
understand that.
digitally doctor that.
And I
so
appreciate
much.
that they still had him in there. he didn't sound right.
He didn't. No, he was what 40 years younger.
And why
first did Vader?
Why was he being stored differently than he was in any of the other films?
Because he was on his own planet. He was on Mustafar.
Okay.
Yeah, he
Fair
was
enough.
because the other places that he was housed were on Star Destroyers or Super Destroyers. Yeah, so other cool
You'd think
thing.
if they just filled that tank with Bacta, that after a while he would have just been, I don't need this suit anymore.
Yeah. Well, the breathing.
Bacta fixes everything.
I like the Saw Gerrera breathing apparatus and how it's like, I guess, a thing around the galaxy that I guess you buy at Galaxy Walmart. The breathing apparatus.
Well, the medical technology in Star Wars has never made any sense.
No, that or communication.
This is a universe with, giant planet destroying super space stations
And hyperspace travel.
and hyperspace travel. People still die in childbirth?
She died of a broken heart, okay? It wasn't the birth.
Okay.
In fact, she even said that.
Yeah.
You're breaking my heart.
Yep.
One more thing, and then I'll let this go.
Sure, no one's listening at this point anyway.
I don't think we're even listening now.
I'm just happy it's not about Japanese subculture.
I'm staying away from it.
Thank you.
I felt a little cheated by the use of the Death Star weapon twice before what we all think of as its first use on Alderaan.
I think that's your own sentiment then. Because did they ever narratively say... Well, Alderaan was the first planet that they straight up blew up.
Yeah. I just think it cheapens Alderaan a little bit when this is like, oh, we've been using it a little bit.
They killed Jimmy Smits. How does that cheapen anything?
And I'm glad to see that they brought Jimmy Smits
That
back,
was very
because
cool.
Anything that can make us remember the prequels is going to be gold.
Well, I like that they're not running away from it.
Yeah, they're stuck with it.
Exactly. So
he was one of the least bad parts.
Let's make the best of those three shitty hands we were dealt.
Yeah.
The other cool thing I saw, I finally got to see Legion on FX.
Oh, yeah?
Oh my God, is that good? That is really good.
Not even familiar.
Legion is a super telekinetic on like almost Xavier levels, who has not split personalities.
Wait, is Xavier telekinetic?
Yes.
Telepathic.
Well, he's a telepath, telekinetic, everything type.
I don't think he can move things with his mind.
Yeah. Legion?
No. Xavier.
Oh, Xavier. No. But yeah, Legion is like just, he's going crazy and he has all these telepathic powers and telekinetic powers and he can't control them and he's just super powerful. And it's done from a David Lynch lens. The showrunner is Noah Hawley, who also does Fargo.
So it's sexually confusing.
Not yet.
Okay.
But they have a rogue character in there, not named Rogue, or doesn't even go by the name Anna Marie, which is weird. I'm pretty sure they're going to get around to getting to that. But I'm only 4 episodes into an 8-episode run. But so far, it's like watching Twin Peaks,
which I hated,
adapted into a Marvel property,
which I love.
It's unlike any other adapted comic book material.
Now, please correct me if I'm wrong, listeners, but I believe in the comic books, Legion can actually change reality. He can warp reality.
Can he?
I thought he could.
I know he was like stupid powerful.
He was the one that brought about the Age of Onslaught. Did he not?
Oh, yeah.
Or the Age of Apocalypse, which is a great miniseries where Legion tries to kill Magneto, actually kills Charles Xavier, which creates a chain of events which leads to Apocalypse being the overlord of mutants in North America. It obviously changes reality. Scott Summers, Jean Grey are acolytes of Apocalypse. The X-Men teams are all different. They've got different members. It's a great miniseries. And of course,
it was a fun read.
Yeah. And of course, everything goes back to normal because they find the magic MacGuffin that changes reality back. But
Because comics.
yeah, exactly.
It was almost like an Elseworlds type thing.
A what if, like an extended what if.
Yeah.
There were a few consequences in that a few characters came into the 616 reality from the Age of Apocalypse. I did want to mention one thing that I saw that was excellent this week. On RollingStone.com, there is a copy of, or a video of Creep as done by Prince.
Oh.
Yes.
Huh.
8 minutes. I won't say that he took ownership of that song, but they're sharing custody right now. It was hot. It was really hot.
It's hard for me to picture Prince singing that song because it's hard for me to imagine
Prince being
anyone not throwing themselves at him given the opportunity,
Yeah. Yeah, it seems like
including myself.
Oh, I mean, if he asks,
Yeah,
you
I
just
mean,
kind of have to.
He's like Star Fox.
Wow.
I also picked up the Doom Patrol Omnibus.
Ooh,
And wow, I don't know how familiar you guys are with Doom Patrol.
that's Grant
Not
Morrison,
much.
right?
Yeah, Doom Patrol was a 60s,
That's how much I knew too.
a 60s comic book that DC tried to bring back in their Vertigo line.
Okay.
And after 8 issues, they were like, this is not working. Let's see if Morrison will do it. Because he was doing Animal Man at the time.
Oh,
So they put Morrison on it, and he changed.
Because he wasn't busy.
Yeah. Well, they loved what he did with the Arkham Asylum graphic novel, which is still one of the best things I've ever read. So it's the X-Men, if they were, because you know how the X-Men are portrayed as like perfectly normal human beings, buff, great-looking people. No, these are freaks in the
Yeah.
Doom Patrol. There is
Yeah, the more you mention, the more it's beginning to sound familiar.
yeah, and you know they have to save the world
They can't
from
pass.
the most bizarre threats,
Yeah.
like the starfish in the DC universe.
yeah.
It looks normal compared to the shit that the Doom Patrol deals with, and they're freaks. Society doesn't want anything to do with them, and yet they're constantly saving the world. They're the X-Men as the X-Men should have been written from day one, because that's one thing X-Men has never sold me on very well is the mutant paranoia, because they look like everybody else. And
But that's part of the paranoia.
it's not done very well. It never has
Yeah.
been.
Well, you're writing to a 14-year-old audience too.
Yeah. So yeah, it's none of the people in Doom Patrol are attractive at all, and they are all weird
Well,
and have.
now I'm out.
They have super weird powers.
Is that the one that Grant Morrison wrote himself into?
Yeah, basically.
Okay.
Yep. And had a huge run on it, and so I have the entirety of the run in my house now, and I'm happy.
Nice.
So what are we
They
looking
have to
forward?
borrow.
Yeah, it's going to take me a while to get through that.
Yeah.
It's like 10 years of material in there.
Since you wouldn't let me borrow Horizon Zero Dawn, maybe I can borrow that at some point.
Have you
Maybe.
finished that yet?
I'm going for platinum now.
So you finished it how many times?
Oh, just the one.
Okay.
Because I did every side quest in between the main story. And that's why it took me so long. And I don't want that game to end. Like
That's how I get with games. Like I'll get near the end and then I never quite finish them.
I always finish. I'm a completionist. Like I'm the guy that goes for the platinum trophies on all the single player games. And this story was so compelling and the game was so wonderful to play. I didn't want it to end, so I put off doing the main storyline.
See, that's why I like games like World of Warcraft, because they literally don't end.
Yeah, no doubt.
You can always find a quest or a PvP or something to do.
And a brand new 3 paragraphs of flavor text that will give you some context for why the fuck you're doing it.
So what are we all looking forward to in the week or weeks ahead?
Nice weather and gardening. I'm sorry, man.
Weather's cool.
I like being outside. I like digging in the dirt, getting dirty.
This is what we get for inviting a 65-year-old to be on our podcast.
Hey, you kids, get off my lawn.
Not this week, but next week, Guardians 2.
Yes.
Yeah.
Saving all my lunch money for that.
Yeah, really excited to see that. So this week,
Draft, NFL draft.
yeah,
I'll check
Thursday
it.
night.
Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Really, Thursday's the only day to pay attention.
Friday, second, third round.
If you're a super fan, you'll hang with it through
Sure.
Saturday, but Yeah, I mean, really, just give me the first round.
Yeah. But it's something. It's football in a drought of sports.
Yeah, meaningless baseball. Well, you got hockey and NBA playoffs.
Bah.
Really, hockey playoffs are awesome.
Hockey bores me.
Huh.
I have half the time I cannot see how the puck gets in the net from that scrum of players in front of the net. You know, that kind of loses.
It's a sport where even the announcer is surprised when a goal is made.
Yeah. I like football because there's an ebb and flow. There's no ebb and flow in hockey.
I loved covering hockey, and I did it for like 8 years, and it was so much fun to be a beat writer for hockey, and you really got to know the game. And I don't think you appreciate it as much unless you go to the rink often.
Okay. And I don't, so.
Right.
Yeah, because you could show me all the highlights you want, and you'll never convince me that half those goals weren't accidental.
Correct. That is correct. Well, you're looking at your clock.
Yeah,
Chris,
yes, I'm keeping time.
Huh?
I think we're over.
It's hard to say because we had a long lead on this one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
did.
that's true.
Okay.
Well, why don't you give them the website or the email address?
Yeah. Anybody like, hate, or have anything to criticize what we said, please let us know by emailing us at stayontopic111@gmail. You can hit me up on Twitter at Giltastrophe, or you can hit James on Twitter
At PostJam9.
and Ricotta's. He has like 3 Twitter accounts and he uses none of them.
I will. I'm on Twitter. I will figure out what my handle is and
fix your egg avatar.
yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
You should just give your professional Twitter.
No, that just muddies the water.
Yeah. So yeah, and we are going to revise some of our outreach programs to make it a little bit easier to get in contact with us. If maybe you have an idea of a topic you want on the show, let us know.
If you want us to take the show on the road, you know, we'll put us up for the weekend and we'll travel.
If you want us to stop doing it, if enough of you email us and say, please stop.
I think 5 at this point would probably shut us down.
And
that
now,
would be a majority of our audience. They win.
And at least one person in this room right now.
and now the threat of Bill O'Reilly on podcast too. So, all right. Well, looking forward to episode 7.5 next week.
All right, play us off, Raul.
Ba 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 ba.